Hello, you are listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and stay tuned until 2 for GameBabble Live today. Yes, we've had a slight rescheduling due to the fact that, hey, we got the Club Expo going on. So if you're on campus and you want to join a club, head on down to the Club Expo, go find out what kind of clubbery is going on. Until then, I will see you all again in an hour with GameBabble Live, our video game news and information show, which normally airs from 1 to 3, but today it'll be from 2 to 4. And I look forward to all of you listening, hopefully, maybe. Anyway, back to the music. We've got Hold You Down by DJ Khaled featuring Usher, Rick Ross, and Fab. Here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. Hello, you're listening to 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and this, finally, is GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which normally airs every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m., but today is going from 2 to 4 p.m. because of assorted reasons. I was requested to delay the show a bit. Anyway, we'd like to kick the show off by discussing what new games came out this week, what's coming out next week, and then what anime are in theaters. So let's get on with that before we get into our video game news and so on. So, this week, PlayStation 4, we got A Whole New World, a 2D side-scroller with, it's all retro style and you, throw potions at people. Antiquia Lost, a low-budget JRPG from Kemco. It's a port of one of their iPhone Android RPGs, which they release on, a monthly basis. Battlefield 1, In the Name of the Tsar, I assume that's a DLC expansion. Gunducky Industries, Knack 2. Yes, that's right. Knack 2 is real, and it is out. Congratulations, Knack fans. Sniper Ghost Warrior 3, The Sabotage. I assume that's more DLC. Songbringer, Spectrum, and Utaware Mono, Mask of Truth. Also, today, Destiny 2 comes out. Hey, that's a thing. And then tomorrow, Morphite and Senko no Ronde 2. If you are unfamiliar with Senko no Ronde, that was released, the first game was released on 360 as Wartech. It is a top-down, shooter-fighter hybrid thing. It's a little like Psychic Force, if you ever played that. A smidge like a top-down Virtualon. Basically, you pilot giant robots from a top-down view and spew bullets everywhere at one another. Anyway, that's what's on PlayStation 4. How's the Xbox One doing? What you got? Xbox One got Battlefield 1, Name of the Tsar, Blood Bowl 2, Legendary Edition, Don't Knock Twice, Sniper Ghost Warrior 3, The Sabotage, and Squish and the Corrupted Crystal. Also Destiny 2, and tomorrow Morphite. Moving on, Nintendo Switch, what you got? You got LEGO Worlds, RBI Baseball 17, and tomorrow the Switch will be getting Double Dragon 4, which is an okay NES graphics, super retro style new Double Dragon game. It came out on PS4 a while ago. It's alright. It's not great, but it's not bad. I like the fact that after you beat the game, you can unlock the various enemy characters to play as, so you can play through the game as a Bobo after you beat it. So that gives it a thumbs up in my opinion. Moving on, we got Licked Spear, Double Spear Edition, Morphite, Neurovoider, and The Bridge. Also, apparently on the 8th, they're releasing a Splatoon 2 Neon Green, Neon Pink Nintendo Switch console bundle. Very nice. Let's see, and 3DS gets Cristarino tomorrow, which is another Kemco RPG. And Xbox, we covered Xbox One. Vita. For some reason, the Vita page broke. There we go. Vita also gets Antiquia Lost. Again, one of the low-budget Kemco RPGs. Licky the Lucky Lizard Lives Again. And Utaware Mono Mask of Truth. And in 2 days, the PlayStation Vita gets Drive Girls, which is a game about cute girls that transform into cars and fight robot bugs. Because video games, that's why. Moving on. What's coming out next week? Well, next week, we've got on PlayStation 4, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare Retribution. I assume that's a DLC pack. Happy Dungeons comes out. Injustice 2 Fighter Pack 2. So, hey, more fighters for Injustice 2. Inside/Limbo Double Pack. Ken Follett's The Pillars of the Earth. Maze. NASCAR Heat 2. NHL 18 Young Stars Edition. Planet of the Eyes. Okay. Pro Evolution Soccer 2018 FC Barcelona Edition. SEUM Speedrunners from Hell. Okay. Tooth and Tail, which I think that's a real-time strategy game. That looks kind of okay. Trulon, the Shadow Engine, and ooh, next week is Ys 8, the Lacrimosa of Dana, which I'm actually very excited about. I need to remember to grab that. Also next week is Baja Edge of Control HD, Dishonored Death of the Outsider, NBA 2K18, NBA Live 18, NHL 18, and the Solus Project, which I think I heard something about that getting some PlayStation VR support. And, oh wow, is that actually next? Okay. No, I'm going a little past next week. I'm sorry. Solus Project is week after next. Cut it off at the over there. Okay, Xbox One, what are you getting next week? Xbox One is getting Blackguards 2, Injustice 2, Fire Pack 2, Inside/Limbo Double Pack, Ken Follett's The Pillars of the Earth, Maze, NASCAR Heat 2, NHL 18, Planet of the Eyes, Pro Evolution Soccer 2018, Don't Starve Together Console Edition, Transcripted, Baja Edge of Control, Dishonored Death of the Outsider, Dream Break, Jetto Marrow, Hero of the Universe, NBA Live 2K18, NHL 18, and Time Recoil. How about Switch? What you getting next week, Switch? Switch is getting Rayman Legends Definitive Edition, Kingdom New Lands, Semi-Spheres, and NBA 2K18. Good. And 3DS is getting... Oh, wow! 3DS is getting Metroid Samus Returns, the remake of Metroid 2 for the 3DS. That's happening. Along with a new 3DS XL Samus Edition. Very nice. And the Vita is getting Ys 8, the Lacrimosa of Dana, and yeah, that looks like about it. So those are the games this week and next week. Good times to be had by all. What anime are in theaters? Well, right now it looks like we're just waiting for Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, which will be September 24th, 25th, and 27th. It will be dubbed on the 24th and 27th, subbed on the 25th, and I highly recommend that movie. It was one of Miyazaki's earliest films. Not his absolute... Actually, shoot, that's right. Isn't, I think Lupin III, Castle of Cagliostro, is supposed to be this week of... let me see some Cagliostro showtimes. That should also be... Not this week, but this next month. Because that was a even... Yes, okay! We'll get back to that. So, yes, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, I think that was, like, during the formative years of Studio Ghibli, and it inspired a lot of Japanese RPGs and Japanese fantasy stylings. If you have not seen it, I definitely recommend it. But earlier, September 14th and 19th, we have Lupin III, The Castle of Cagliostro, which was also Miyazaki, but, you know, working with an existing franchise. So that was even before Valley of the Wind. And yeah, it's very good. If you've never seen Lupin III, it's a fantastic and very long-running series. I highly recommend it. And what better place to start than Castle of Cagliostro? Again, that's dubbed on the 14th, subbed on the 19th. And that concludes the Anime in Theaters report for this week and next week, and or the games for this week and next week, and what anime are going to be in theaters next week. We're going to take a very brief break with Through It All From Ashes to New, and then when we get back, we will begin digging into the video game news and information that you love in GameBabble Live, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. Here's Through It All by From Ashes to New. Hello and welcome back to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Del. This is GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. But today we're doing from 2 to 4 due to reasons. Anyway, Where do we even begin with the video game news? How about the one that I think only I care about, which is the fact that, Code of Princess is coming to the Nintendo Switch. Along with, a couple of other games being published by Nicholas. But Code of Princess is coming to Nintendo Switch. That makes me super happy. I really hope they put in local multiplayer. Because if they do, that'll totally be worth it. If they don't, I already own the game twice. If you're unfamiliar, Code of Princess is a very Guardian Heroes-like side-scrolling beat-em-up with art by Kinu Nishimura, who was the woman who did art for the Capcom vs. SNK games. She did the Capcom side art, while Shinkiro did the SNK side art. And Code of Princess was a really fun game. I had fun with it when it originally released on the 3DS, and I look forward to playing it on the Switch. I really, really hope that it has local multiplayer. And while we're on the subject of Code of Princess, do remember that there's also a crossover fighting game of Code of Princess, Cave Story, and Umehara Kawase coming at some random point in time. It's very strange. Meanwhile, Dynasty Warriors 9 has detailed its combat in more detail. If you're unfamiliar, Dynasty Warriors 9 is going to be a big shake-up for the series. They're going to try that again. Supposedly it's going to be big free-roaming open-world adventure. And they said, this time the combat system is going to have some hold R1 and then press a face button to do different special moves kind of thing going on. So a little bit like the Sengoku Basara series. And it sounds very promising. It sounds a lot better than the last time they tried a big shake-up to the Dynasty Warriors series. Having said that, I am very concerned about multiplayer in the series because the last couple Dynasty Warriors games have been lacking their signature split-screen gameplay, which has been a selling point for the franchise. And with a big free-roaming open-world game, are they still going to do split-screen? Are they even going to try for online play? Or is it going to go fully single-player? Because while that might be fine for Japan, I know the Western market mostly buys Dynasty Warriors for the co-op. So, it's a bit of a thing. Moving right along, though, there's a new music game coming to Switch involving schoolgirls playing metal, and Tak Fuji is involved. So it will not be an ordinary music game. It will be an extreme music game. And I'm excited for it, because that guy managed to make Frogger extreme. Don't believe me? Frogger 3D on the 3DS. That game is nuts. It is seriously a Frogger game where you can cause traffic accidents, ride on top of a giant frog, travel through time, and has boss battles against helicopters. And it's not like that Frogger that has a voice and is a character that they tried to do on PS2. No, it's just a frog. It's just a frog causing traffic accidents and fighting friggin' helicopters. Tak Fuji can make anything extreme, even his own injury. He did have a horrible skateboarding accident that put him in a lot of pain, and I didn't think he was going to make it. So I'm very glad to hear that he is back in the producing, directing role, and the game is called GameBabble. Again, game about schoolgirls playing heavy metal for the Nintendo Switch. Very excited for its release, especially because I really, really, really like music games that have, actual characters in them. What can I say? I'm attached to the Busta Groove series, alright? It's one of my favorite games of all time. I love Busta Groove. And while GameBabble certainly won't be that, it would be nice to have another game in that vein. Moving right along, apparently, Earth Defense Force 4.1 Wing Diver the Shooter has been announced. We know very little about it other than they're going to make a Wing Diver-based shooter, I guess based on EDF 4.1, even though EDF 5 is on the horizon. Meanwhile, Gintama fans rejoice! If you are a fan of Gintama, I have some relatively good news for you. The next Gintama game, though there is no sign of a US release, will be released in Asia with English subtitles. So you can import it through a variety of different importing services. Maybe buy it off Japanese PSN, maybe order it through Play Asia. But if you like Gintama, it is called Gintama Rumble, and it is a Dynasty Warriors-style Gintama game. So yay! Moving on further, The Secret of Mana remake is actually further along than we expected. It is coming to Vita, PS4, and PC. It will be on Steam. So that means pretty much everyone can play it, but it'll also be on PS4. It is looking incredibly promising, even though the graphics aren't that gorgeous. Again, it's a Vita game first, but the graphics look very nice. An idiot friend of mine was like, oh, that looks like the Final Fantasy IV DS engine. It's like, no, that looks way better than the DS remake of Final Fantasy IV. You're an idiot. It's pretty swell looking. Go Google it. Secret of Mana remake. Take a look at how it looks. Meanwhile, Travis strikes again. No More Heroes has been announced for the Switch. A new No More Heroes game. But apparently, it is not No More Heroes 3. It takes place quite a few years after the events of No More Heroes. It will not involve an Assassin's Tournament, but it will take place in the No More Heroes universe and timeline and feature Travis Touchdown. So it is a No More Heroes game, but doing something a little bit different with it. So, that's very good. Meanwhile, Capcom has re-released Street Fighter 2 for the Super Nintendo for some reason. It's ridiculously overpriced and no one cares. Also, Riggs is free this month for PlayStation Plus members. So if you have a PlayStation VR and you have not played Riggs, now you can pick it up and get angry at Sony all over again. Because, yeah, Sony disbanded the development team in the middle of them updating and upgrading the game, leaving the game in sort of a bizarre limbo state, which is a darn shame because Riggs is one of the best PlayStation VR games. If you can trudge your way through the nausea-inducing tutorial. The tutorial is really, really bad in that game. It lasts for like an hour, and they don't let you turn off like the anti-nausea mask until after you beat it, leading many people to believe that you couldn't turn it off. And I find this to be a problem because the anti-nausea mask is what makes me nauseous. Good job, Sony. You the best. Let's see. Ooh! Rumor has it that Dragon Ball FighterZ Z will have 27 playable characters. Super Saiyan Blue, Goku, and Vegeta have already been confirmed, and Android 17 will be playable as an unlockable EX character. What I'm hearing is that if you choose that basically you put your cursor over the character and you hit a button, these will be like the unlockable ones. And you select them that way, and if you select, like, Super Saiyan Blue Goku, you won't be able to team up with regular Goku, and you won't be able to team up Android 17 and 18 at the same time. It's one or the other. Partially because Android 18 uses Android 17 in her attacks, and selecting him will just be select Android 18, hit a button, you can select Android 17. So good times. But the most surprising thing is supposedly Towa will be an unlockable character. And that makes me very happy. To be blunt, Dragon Ball Z is kind of a sausage fest. This is a thing many people have criticized it for. And you can only go so far with Android 18. And our other options are pretty much Pan and Zangya. And I would be all about some Zangya. But we all know that ain't happening. And Pan probably isn't happening. So them putting Towa in the game is actually pretty awesome. If you're unfamiliar, Towa is the video game exclusive villainess who has shown up in Dragon Ball Xenoverse. Like, she's pretty much from Xenoverse. And also shows up in one of the Japanese arcade Dragon Ball Z card games. And showed up in I think that game's called Dragon Ball Fusions, right? The one on 3DS they just released that's pretty neat and was all about fusing like crazy. Either way, Towa's in there. And it's looking pretty promising. I'm very glad to hear that she might be in Dragon Ball FighterZ Z. Very good call on their part. And also, Resident Evil 7 Gold Edition will be coming December 12th. It is Resident Evil 7 with all the DLC, which means all the DLC will be out by that point in time. If you bought the Resident Evil Season Pass, you will already have access to everything that will be in the Gold Edition. We just didn't expect it to take this long. And they have also confirmed that darn near all the content is VR compatible. So that's good. Maybe I'll pick it up at that point. I don't know. I'm not a big Resident Evil fan, but I'm very excited about the DLC that lets you play as Chris Redfield, because that will probably be more action-oriented, and I understand most people, that you play Resident Evil to play a horror game, not an action game. I completely agree with you. I'm just not a horror game fan, to be blunt. Ooh, so that concludes most of the video game news. Ooh, we got one more thing to talk about. We'll wait for that after the break. So we're going to take a little bit of a break here, and then when we get back, I guess we will, discuss the importance of being good at video games. Let's see. Coming up next is Coming up next is Ain't No Trucks in Texas by Ronnie Dunn, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening, and please stay tuned for more GameBabble Live all the way until 4 p.m. today. Thanks again for listening. Hello, you are listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and this is GameBabble Live, our video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m., but today we're running until 4 because we started at 2. It's a crazy day. Anyway, so I mentioned I had one more piece of news, which is the fact that apparently Sonic Forces has some very interesting pre-order items. If you pre-order the game, you get costumes for your original character Do Not Steal based on Beat from Jet Set Radio, I from Super Monkey Ball, Knights from Knights, Amite's hat from Puyo Puyo, not the big poofy one with the wings, but like the beanie. I would have preferred the big poofy one with the wings, but I will take the Puyo beanie. It's all good. Amite has great tastes in hats. I will at least give her that. And most peculiarly, there is a Persona 5 costume for your original character in Sonic Forces. There's a Persona 5 costume. Well, I never saw that coming. And it completely baffles people until you remember, oh yeah, that's right, Sega owns Atlas now. Still, it's a very strange thing since, Sonic Forces is generally aimed at a bit of a younger audience than Persona is, but at the same time, it is certainly acknowledging the older fans, and it's a cool costume anyway. But I'm just very, very amused that you can get the main character Joker from Persona 5. You can get an outfit of that for your original character in Sonic Forces. Makes me happy. Moving right along, though. Oh, also, speaking of that kind of stuff, apparently, if you head over to the Nippon Ichi America website, you can sign up to receive free DLC for Culdcept Revolt when that comes out on 3DS. If you're unfamiliar with Culdcept, it is actually a very long-running series in Japan. It's a digital board game best described as a combination of Monopoly and Magic the Gathering. Basically, imagine Monopoly, you're moving around board, you're buying these squares, except instead of putting houses and hotels on your different squares, you put monsters on them out of a deck of cards. And each monster has its own strengths and weaknesses and abilities and stuff that you can use, and if you want to take a square from your opponent, you have to defeat their monster that they have defending that square. There's a bunch of different intricacies and nuances to it, and it actually gets ridiculously complex. The first game was released in America for the PlayStation 2, where it, found success compared to its Japanese release. See, Culdcept originally released, I think, on Saturn, but it was most popular on Dreamcast, where it had online play. And when it was ported to PS2, it lacked the online play, so Japanese players were very displeased. But American players, we never had online play. It was our first taste of Culdcept, and so we were fine with it. We also got Culdcept Saga on the Xbox 360 very early on. It was a very early 360 game, and I wonder if that one's actually kind of expensive or not. I don't know where my copy went. I loaned it to some friends who liked Culdcept more than me, and it kind of vanished. I think that was the last we ourselves solve Culticept until the upcoming Culticept Revolt, which I really wish was on Nintendo Switch. It would be a good fit for that system, but whatever. Either way, we got Culticept Revolt coming up, and if you head over to the Nipponichi website, you can sign up to receive some free DLC. Just, give them your email address. And I'm going to assume maybe they'll use that information to gauge how many copies they should print or something. I don't know. It's, it is a very niche game. So, there have been two major things people have been yammering about. One is flagrant clickbait, which is the running discussion about how Mario's not a plumber anymore, and people are acting like the sky is falling. And it's such an exaggeration of what's said. Apparently, if you translate the Japanese description of Mario on the Super Mario Odyssey. I want to call it Galaxy again. Super Mario Odyssey website. It says, all around sporty, whether it's tennis or baseball, soccer or car racing, Mario does everything cool. As a matter of fact, he also seems to have worked as a plumber a long time ago. This isn't so much a reference to him not being a plumber anymore, so much as he hasn't had any plumber work since he moved to the Mushroom Kingdom. Which, of course, a lot of people would say, yeah, I haven't really seen him do any plumbing in video games other than, going down warp pipes. And it's like, yeah, unless you were talking about the movie or the cartoon series. Because the good old Super Mario Bros. Super Show did love to use Mario's plumber job as a way of getting him from point A to point B. He goes to some crazy place to unclog a toilet, and then Koopa's up to no good. That happened. America was much more obsessed with the whole plumber angle than Japan was. So, but there's a ton of stupid websites that are like, OMG, Mario's not a plumber anymore. What does this mean? It means he hasn't had any plumber work in a while. Get over it. Just slow news days sometimes, people. Slow news days. And speaking of slow news and incompetent journalism, so the current talk of the internet is the lackluster gaming skills of a journalist for VentureBeat who recently played Cuphead at Gamescom. Cuphead is a side-scrolling run-and-gun kind of Metal Slug type game with retro, 1940s cartoon artwork that's really, really smooth and mildly disturbing. And yeah, you play as a guy with a cup for a head. And yeah, this guy posted an article talking about how hard Cuphead was with 26 minutes of footage of him playing the game and struggling to get past the tutorial. The tutorial that has instructions written on the screen. And there's this one point. He has so much trouble because there's this one point where you have to stand on a block, jump, and then dash in midair. And the words say, press A to jump, press Y to dash. There is a big, tall block that you cannot jump over, but there is a small block next to it that you can stand. What do you think you're going to do? There are people legitimately worried about this guy because it's you lack the basic problem-solving and hand-eye coordination skills to function in the world. Are you okay, dude? Were you drunk? Do you need help? Some people are worried about him. And what's amazing is, of course, he comes back with this response, which I'm having the darndest time finding, where he's like, I was wondering how much vitriol I'd get in the comments, but, he goes on about how maybe, you're all so great at video games, but, not everyone is, and this is looking at games from, a more widespread mainstream standpoint, and he goes on and on about it. It's dude, you couldn't get past the tutorial in a basic retro-style run-and-gun platformity thing. If you wanted to tell me that there is a serious problem with control responsiveness, I would believe you. if you had an excuse, I would believe you, but just saying, oh no, the game's so hard, you couldn't get past the tutorial. But what makes it amazing is that game journalists have actually come out of the woodwork to defend this. And they're like, oh, these people are being just so mean to this guy. And, how can they be this way? Because, not everyone is so super elite at game. You can't get past the tutorial. And it's not like the driver tutorial or anything. It's not like the Armored Core 2 tutorial. Those are like the two tutorials I remember as being particularly bad. Driver had a really terrible tutorial that you had to beat in order to get to the main game, and many people couldn't because it required you to do a lot of, really difficult driving skills, which were very poorly explained. But this is jumping and then pressing Y to air dash with a big old sign saying, press Y to dash, floating in midair in order to get over an obstacle. A 4-year-old could figure it out. In fact, someone posted a video of them asking their 4-year-old child, so, what do you think this guy should do here? They're like, he should jump on the block and then jump and dash in midair. It's like, good job! And the horrifying thing is this guy isn't new. He's been a game journalist for 21 years. And when you find that out, you're like, how did you do that? Now, I have nothing against this guy. I think he's very bad at his job, and I do think, I don't think you have to be good at games. But in order to discuss video games, you have to be able to make it out of the tutorial. Basic competency is a little bit important. You might not be your line of work. It's like reviewing a car if you, don't know how to drive. Or, as one person put it, should a sports writer know what a football is? This is what we're talking about in terms of basic competency, and it blows my mind that people are, trying to excuse this, especially because I haven't seen anyone be too mean to him. Because you're definitely a jerk if you're being, actually legit mean, but a lot of people are like, wow, you really suck. And I'm sorry, that's not mean enough to call out the defense force for. Being like, dude, are you okay? This is really bad. How do you even do this? And I don't think the thousands of downvotes the video has gotten are worth that kind of a response either. To really, be like, oh, y'all should be ashamed for being so mean to this guy. No, you're a professional paid journalist. Basic competency is expected. The fact that he couldn't beat the first stage isn't even so. It's the fact that he couldn't get past the tutorial, that he took so long to get through that. And look up the video. Tell me I'm wrong. That's the thing. Just watch the video. Look up Cuphead, 26 minutes of shame. You'll find it, because it is kind of the talk of the internet right now, and I think it's a pretty uncontroversial statement to make that's someone who doesn't know how to play video games. How did you review games for 21 years? I don't mean to be mean. I'm legitimately baffled. Well, that concludes that. I don't know what else there is to say about that. I've got a lot of videos on the topic I would like to watch. So, with that out of the way, I am going to kick it back to the music and try to figure out what we're going to talk about from 3 to 4. I could end the show right now, but I will continue going until 4. I will find a point of discussion somewhere out there, because I guarantee you something will smack me in the face. Until then, though, here's music. Coming up next is Good Life by G-Eazy and Kelani, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Stay tuned, and thank you so much for... Hello, you are listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and this is GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m., though today we're going from 2 to 4. So, let us continue and see what we can find. First of all, following up the story I was talking about before with the guy who was really bad at Cuphead, I finally found his response to all of the people saying, wow, dude, you really suck at this. So let's read this response and comment on it. See, so what he said was, I've watched the comments on this thread just to see how mean they would be. I think it's useful to show my gameplay experience. I did not intentionally play poorly to troll anyone, but it serves as an interesting social experiment. I walk into a game cold, and this is the play that results. The video shows it's a notch more difficult than your typical Mario game. Dude, you couldn't beat the tutorial. Moving on. Well, okay, he beat the tutorial eventually, but he had a lot more trouble with it than, normal people would. Moving on. In fact, if you're expecting Mario, as the story says, then you are thrown off. And it shows that the developers are going to leave a lot of people who are worse than me behind. Maybe they're fine with that. Maybe they want to target gamers with the love for difficult games. That's fine. But I think they should signal that. How many games actually come with a tutorial these days? They're not popular. But if it's necessary, then that's a signal this is going to require some skill. Okay, I have a lot of problems with this statement. First of all, if you've been playing video games for 21 years, you should know that tutorials are now depressingly common in games. It has been a thorn in many of our sides, in fact, as practically every game I've played recently has an excessively lengthy tutorial that drives me utterly nuts. In fact, I would probably say the same of Cuphead, a game that really doesn't seem like it would need a tutorial, but you've clearly proven me wrong. And about signaling, as a lot of people have pointed out, dude, you are that signal. You're supposed to be the person who helps people understand how difficult this game is going to be. Unfortunately, you're so bad at it that your definition of difficult and the average person's definition of difficult kind of vary. And leave a lot of people worse than you behind. Dude, I don't know if people worse than you actually exist. Like, if you own an Xbox One, there is a 99.9% chance you are better than this guy at Cuphead. Let's move on. As for the other comments on this thread, I wonder why they are hostile to someone who is playing the game as a beginner. Are we that intolerant of people who are not gamers? Should I have played the scene over and over again until I was good at it and then turned the recording on like so many of those perfect video walkthroughs you see? Okay. I find it very peculiar that you are a game journalist but don't consider yourself a gamer. I always find that very weird. But again, you've been reviewing games, supposedly, for 21 years, and you can't get past a basic jump in a tutorial. Like, that's really, really weird, okay? I don't think you fully comprehend just how bad you are at this game. And it is one of those things that, it makes me wonder, because I know there are games that I'm astonishingly bad at, namely stealth games. And I'm like, am I this bad at stealth games? Am I even remotely comparable to this? I don't know. Stealth games, require at least a little bit more skill. I don't know. It's basic controls, man. Moving on, last paragraph. I believe that games can be made accessible and inviting to people who are not hardcore fans, and these people can be accommodated inside the same game that is appealing to hardcore fans through difficulty levels. So when people tell me that I shouldn't be playing this game because on my first play I was pretty lousy, that's an attitude that argues that games should be shut off in their own little corner, only played publicly by the masters and the experts. I disagree with that view entirely, and I believe it leads to elitist attitudes that allow gamers to look down on other people, and that only leads to a more fragmented world of haters. Dude. No amount of difficulty level adjustment is going to help you. You had trouble with the tutorial in a basic 2D platformer. I don't know, these are all very nice words that you have said, but it is still a flimsy defense. I'm sorry, no. I do not accept your explanation. Moving on, apparently, worldwide shipments of VR headsets are steadily growing at a rate of about 25.5%, according to, the heck is this, IDC, Analyze the Future, whatever. It's a press release. AR and VR headsets are maintaining growth. Half of them are, of course, just stupid shells you shove a cell phone into. Found out the manufacturer of my cheapo cell phone is actually making plastic VR cases for cell phones. But the other 50% of those sales are indeed, proper tethered real VR headsets, which, according to this, to quote them directly, demand for Sony's PSVR remains unmatched among the top tier of tethered headsets. The launch of Farpoint, along with the VR aim controller, combined with some sustained demand for Resident Evil 7, boded well for Sony. Outside of gaming, Sony is also working at bringing other experiences to the VR platform by partnering with Hollywood creators. Despite its success, Sony still announced a modest price cut for the PSVR that should help drive sustained growth throughout the end of the year. Good! Everyone, that's the thing they know, everyone is announcing price drops for their VR headsets, and that's to be expected. I mean, think about game consoles. You wait a year, they wind up having a little bit of a price drop. Same thing applying to VR headsets, and that is, of course, the number one hurdle that VR headsets have to get over is that huge price point. The PlayStation VR has, of course, been selling well because it has been the lowest priced of all the assorted VR headsets, though the Oculus is now about the same price after a recent price cut. But on top of that, it's for PlayStation 4. And as much as many of the hardcore gaming audience swears by PCs, we often overlook the fact that consoles still do really well. That consoles are still very important. And that in many cases, console sales do outnumber PC sales. It very much depends on the game and the genre and so on. But for a lot of people, well, PCs are a pain in the butt to deal with. And that goes like doubly so for VR, because to play a good VR game on PC, you need a meaty machine. And so a lot of people are like, I don't want to deal with the complex setup and the big, expensive upgrades for my computer along with a very high-priced headset. So getting the cheaper headset on a PlayStation 4 where it just works is great. I know a lot of people are then going to say, but you need a PS4 Pro. No, you don't. I don't have one. I don't want one. I don't need a PS4 Pro. Yes, it would enhance the resolution and give me more particle effects in certain VR games. That's just dandy. But I'm fine with my image being a little blurry if it means I don't have to spend a gigantic wad of money. Not to mention, my PlayStation 4 is Dragon Quest Metal Slime Special Edition. They don't have one of those for the Pro, so it can go screw itself. Prioritize. Yes. Although, let me tell you, that makes remembering which button I have to press, whether it's X or O, very confusing, because I imported that special edition from Korea. It was cheaper in Korea than it was in Japan. So, oh, yeah, yes. It's actually very funny, because it depends on if I'm inside a game or inside the interface, whether it's X or O to confirm. If you're unfamiliar, on American systems, you press X to select things. On Japanese systems, you press O to select things. It's kind of nutty. Always confusing. But I get the hang of it. But while we are on the topic of VR, though, good news! I guess I'm going to be getting Sports Bar VR now, because Sports Bar VR has added PC, PlayStation 4 crossplay, along with new minigames, which include a puzzle wall and a form of whack-a-mole. And I was just thinking about how much I want to play whack-a-mole in VR. Don't judge me. I want to play some VR whack-a-mole, all right? Oh, God, if they did a VR version of Monkey Bowl Panic, I'd be so happy. That's an obscure arcade game. Way back in the day, back when there was a Tilt at Northwest Plaza, they had this game called Monkey Mole Panic, and it was whack-a-mole except a video game, and you had 9 buttons laid out in front of you that you were smacking, and it was really good, because it was whack-a-mole, but with boss fights and silly graphics. I loved it. I loved it a lot. And then there was like a smaller kids version called Animal Land in the ticket section. But anyway, I would love to see, like, if they made it cheap, yeah, Whack-A-Mole VR with, like, crazy boss battles would be amazing. But until then, Sports Bar VR is apparently getting an update, version 2.0, which it also lets up to 12 players be in the same sports bar. And I've also found out that you can put shields up around your tables so that way people can't interfere with them. Because otherwise it is way too tempting when playing pool to just pick up pool balls and start throwing them at people. This sounds like a good time and I need to buy it. I need to get this game now. I'm now interested because it's not that expensive if I recall. Also, apparently it looks like this is another Chinese-made game. Something called Code 51 is supposed to be a post-apocalyptic mech arena VR game. And it looks very interesting because unlike Riggs, where you have like the head tracking moving the targeting reticle, here it is a more stationary targeting reticle, attached to your mech, and they're much jankier looking mechs with a full cockpit and everything. It's like, this is pretty close to Mech Warrior VR. Of course, what I really want is a Steel Battalion VR. See, I'm not sure if y'all heard about this, but when they did that Star Wars Battlefront 1, they had it where if you owned that game, you could download a VR X-Wing mission that came out eventually. And it's the only way to get the thing, and it's a darn shame because it's only one mission. But the VR X-Wing mission is super awesome because aside from just being really well made and fun, you can look at the different buttons and press X to activate all the buttons in the X-Wing cockpit and bring them up. They weren't entirely functional, but it let you hit all those buttons. I just looked at that and I'm like, you could do Steel Battalion in this. And so they totally should. And if you are unfamiliar with Steel Battalion, that was an original Xbox mech game that came with a very, very, very expensive controller that was 3 times the size of an Xbox and was a full mech cockpit with a ton of switches and buttons, and you could turn on windshield wipers and put out fires with a fire extinguisher button. And the crazy thing was it had this covered eject button that you had to flip up and slam that eject button to fly out of your mech, otherwise your save data got erased. It was a very legendary experience that was too expensive for most people to partake in. And so years later they made a Kinect Steel Battalion game that was complete garbage and is borderline unplayable. Because it's a Kinect game, what do you expect? The Kinect is good for dancing games, and that is it. It is the dance pad of the future. Trust me, I've tried everything else on it. What else is there? Fantastic Pets? Don't say Kinectimals. Kinectimals is garbage. Oh my god, Kinectimals is such garbage. So yeah. Good times are being had. I don't know what else there is to say. Let me see if any new video game news has rolled in recently. No, not really. All right. Well, that sounds like I'm going to be kicking you back to the music. Stay tuned. I'll probably be back and find something to talk about until 4 o'clock. Until then, here is Love Falls by Hell Yeah, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much. You are listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. That was Kaji Starboy by The Weeknd. And this is GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m., though today we were doing 2 to 4, but running a little low on stuff, and we got other people waiting to get in the booth, so I am going to wrap things up. I've got a few more pieces of information, the most surprising of which Tempest 4000 is happening. Jeff Minter is making it. Atari stopped being jerks. If you're unfamiliar, Jeff Minter, creator of Tempest 2000 and 3000 for you Nuon owners out there, had made a game called TXK, which was kind of an unlicensed Tempest-esque game, and it released on the Vita. He was going to release it on PlayStation 4 with PlayStation VR support, and just as he was about to, Atari came in with lawyers and shut the whole thing down. Now Tempest 4000 is announced, it's coming, it is a different game from TXK, but I do not see any word on VR support, though he is currently working on porting his current VR game, Polybius, to PC. Speaking of VR support, I just found out about Eve Valkyrie Warzone, which is an update for Eve Valkyrie that's going to add a bunch of stuff, but most importantly, it will add non-VR mode. So if you like first-person space flight sim combat games, you no longer are going to need a PlayStation VR to play Eve Valkyrie once the Warzone expansion hits. Everyone that already owns it, that already owns Eve Valkyrie, will get the Warzone update for free, which adds in a whole new roster of ships, changes a bunch of everything, removes a lot of the microtransactions, refunds a lot of the microtransactions. Now you no longer need to, buy ships and equip them to different launch tubes to use them. Now you just get access to all the ships immediately, which is going to be very good because I was being driven insane by the fact that I couldn't get a good support ship, because I'm really bad at fighting, so I was going to roll support, but I couldn't get a good support ship because I couldn't get the necessary support ship experience to get a good one to actually help out my team. Now that's going to be completely changed. So it is this massive overhaul, and that makes me very happy. Maybe I'll like this new Eve Valkyrie, and the new environments are looking very spicy. So I look forward to diving back in once Warzone launches, and Warzone is also it's also cross-play between PlayStation 4 and PC. I love the way they're putting it now. Cross-play and cross-reality. Whatever. What's important is having more players to shoot at in Eve Valkyrie. I wish I was actually good at the game. I'm actually not that big of a fan, but I love it in principle. Other than that, I believe that wraps up all the video game news and information for this week. Thank you very much for joining us, and I hope to see you again next week from 1 to 3 p.m. for even more GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show. Every Wednesday, 1 to 3 p.m. Hope to see you there. Until then, though, here is Sober Saturday Night by Chris Young featuring Vince Gill. And in a certain number of minutes after me, we will have RK9 on with her own collection of music and madness. So please stay tuned for that. Until then, thank you so much for listening to GameBabble Live here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Here's Sober Saturday Night by Chris Young featuring Vince Gill, and thank you so much for listening.